Welcome to TMI with Teryl and Martha. We have a little bit of a different setup here today.
Yes, we
are
do.
so excited about that. We want you to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, because we want to know what you think and what you think about the program. So we're looking forward to that, and we're just happy to be here today.
Yes, we are. So we've had a little bit of a hiatus, but we are back today to talk to you guys about heart health and a few things that Martha has learned recently regarding her heart. And we're just going to kind of go over the process of what she's been through and hope that, we can also, this story that we're sharing with you today will help any one of you who are listening at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Because women and their heart health, and let me just set this up. On February 5th, I had Karen Gersh, who we're going to be talking to at some point in time here on my radio program on WDUN. And we were talking about two things that I care a lot about. And one of them is early lung cancer detection, because that's one of the areas. And we'll talk about that as also in the future.
Yes.
But I have 3 members of my family that died of lung cancer. And so for the last 20 years or so, I've been working with the Northeast Georgia Health System about that. And Karen has got the most amazing program she's put together.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yes, that is easy, cheap. You don't have to worry about whether insurance will pay for it. And I'll just give you a quick thumbnail of that one. You come into the emergency room because you've had a car wreck or a bicycle accident or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
You're not coming in because you're having any lung problems, because if you're having symptoms from lung cancer, it's already too late. Okay, that's kind of the way it is with lung cancer.
Right.
What this does is, if you come into the emergency room at Northeast Georgia Health System, and there's other health systems that do this, when you get a chest x-ray, they do a secondary look at the chest x-ray for things that might be lung cancer. Okay.
Wow.
And so they find, because what they're looking for is spots. Okay.
On the lungs.
It's the most underdiagnosed cancer. Okay. And it has the worst outcome, because by the time you have symptoms, it's
already down the road.
It's down the road. So what happens is, in general, in roughly 10% of the cases that come in, they need to be looked at more closely. And in 10% of those cases, they've got stage 1 or 0 lung cancer. And she goes with a robot. It's not invasive, takes the spots anywhere from 1 to 3 off of your lung. And they look at them, and then they can come back and tell you that you have. And I have a very good friend of mine, 37 years old, had 3 children, had a bicycle accident, went through this process, and found out that he had adenocell carcinoma. And had he waited for it to present itself, it would have been too late.
He would have been gone.
Yes. So I'm so excited she's doing this. But the other thing she does, because she's a cardiothoracic surgeon.
We have great people here in Gainesville.
That's right. She does women's heart health, especially all heart health, but especially women's heart health. And so we talked about that, because February is Heart Health Month. That's right. Mm-hmm. So we get done with the show about 11. I meet my husband for lunch. Leave from lunch about 12:30. Head on to a group I'm in, a caregivers group at church. I sit down at the caregivers group, and about the minute I sit down, I start to have this pain in my chest.
That's amazing.
That's like a way I describe it is a ball with needles in it. That's what it felt like.
Wow.
And then my arm started tingling.
Right.
And then I started sweating. And those are all the classic heart attack symptoms.
Yeah.
So I went into I first called my husband, stepped out of the meeting, called my husband. He said, well, I'm across town. My husband's a primary care doctor. I'm across town, and you'll get there faster if you get an ambulance. You need to go call the ambulance. So I go into the office, and the little guy there's like about 25 years old at my church office. And I said, I need you to call me an ambulance. And he goes, how do I do that?
Oh my God.
And I was like, you call 911 and ask for it. I was a little dramatic, I think, because I was in so much pain. But so the people started coming out from the office. They took my blood pressure. It was very high, 188 over 122.
That up
very
so fast.
And having a heart attack.
Yeah, well, I mean.
And then the EMS guys come in, and this is the first, and they prayed over me too, which I think was great. The pastor overheard me saying, I don't want to die today, because I did feel for a minute that
it hurt that bad.
Yeah, I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see my husband. I'm not going to see my children. This is it.
That's life-changing in and of itself.
It is. And so he overheard that. He told me later, I knew that was my cue to come out. and he came out and he prayed over me and all of that. So the EMS guys get there and he says, oh, hey, Miss Zoller, you and your husband bought us breakfast a couple of months ago. And then I knew I was going to be okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like, okay, I'm going to be fine. They're going to take care of me. So they get me in the ambulance. They hook me up to the 12 gauge EKG. They got my husband on my phone, which, is probably not protocol, but that's what it was.
Well, he's a doctor.
Yes. And so they get it all hooked up. And before they leave the parking lot, they say, Ms. Zoller, you're having a heart attack.
Oh, they
but
knew.
Don't worry. And that's when I cried. Okay. Because it was just emotion and all that stuff. You're having a heart attack, but we'll get you there quick. And so now if you are familiar with Gainesville, to get to the emergency room, you go down Enoda, which is a bumpy road because there's a school there.
Oh, yeah.
So they're going lights flashing fast as they can, and they're trying to put IVs in my arm. You can still see the bruises. But they got me there in 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And they said, there'll be a crowd waiting for you. And there was. So I come around the corner in the stretcher.
Look at you, Miss Popula.
Yes. It's like everybody's waiting for me to get to my room. And so I get into the triage room and I recognize the doctor and the nurse from my father-in-law, you know. Yeah. And so they start working on me. They hit me with some fentanyl for the pain, and that takes it away, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And then they get me up to the cardiac lab. Now, this is a funny story, but since we're all girls here, okay, I can tell this story. They said here, but in the listing, I know we have some men, but you are very sensitive to women. I know that if you're listening and watching. The guy leans down, the nurse goes, are you shaved down there? And for a minute, I don't know what he's talking about because I'm not thinking. I have to go up to a cath lab and I don't realize they may have to go up through my groin.
Right.
And so I said, oh no, I'm all 1970s down there. So you don't have to worry about it.
It's a party.
It's a party. So, they get me up to the cath lab. I don't even know the doctor's name that did the cath because it was like 15 letters long, but he said, call me Dr. G. So that's what I'll call him, Dr.
Thank
G.
you. Yeah.
So they were able to go through my wrist. And so they went through my wrist. Everything was clear, no leakage. Everything was good. I just had a heart attack. Right. So they then got me into the ICU, the heart ICU.
And that's when I hear from you.
Yes.
And it was not a problem. No worries.
Yes.
I'm in ICU and I'll get back to you in a second.
I know. It's true.
It's all good. I'm like,
it's true. I was texting my two bosses in from the ambulance saying I won't be at work tomorrow because when you're self-employed, there's no one else to make that call.
Right. Yeah. What are you going to do? You got to have.
Right. That's right. So,
no worries.
So I was in the hospital for like 2 days and then I was home for 2 weeks. But the syndrome I have and this is why it's important to women's heart health.
Listen.
It's called Takotsubo syndrome. It's a Japanese word for octopus heart.
Okay.
And the colloquial term for it is broken heart syndrome.
Wow.
So it's my son said, well, this is proof positive that the Hallmark Channel kills. Okay. So I thought that was, I know.
I better stop watching that
Everybody
show
had a sense of humor. Everybody had a sense of humor. And so what Takotsubo is, it's stress related. It is a huge spasm of your heart.
Right.
I thought I was having esophageal spasms.
Right.
The few months leading up to it.
Oh, but you think that might have been?
It could have been like a little
preview.
Yeah. Preview. And so we're going to figure that out. We're doing some gastro tests and things like that. And then I had an episode that night, but I was in the hospital.
Right.
A smaller one, kind of like a aftershock.
A mini, yeah.
Yeah. And then when I got home, that Sunday morning, I had a little episode. I had to take nitroglycerin. So now I'm a girl that goes around with nitroglycerin in my purse. So, so I know how to handle that. So all of that to say that I have to change my life. I have always been a stress magnet. I've always been the person that solves all the problems that other people have. Type A personality.
And there's a lot of them, one in the room behind the camera.
Yeah.
And a lot of you out there who are watching and listening. This is important you listen to this.
Yes. So this is a new place for me. Yeah. And and what's different than any other kind of illness I've had where, you had an infection and you got some antibiotics or whatever, is that this is a part of your body that you need really badly
Yeah.
that's not functioning correctly.
Yeah.
And so it changes the way you look at things. You get a little emotional. You start to worry every time you have a little anything, like,
Right.
Well,
you're kind of on high alert right now.
Yes.
Your nervous
Yes.
system is still in a bit of fight or
Yeah.
flight system, because that is super traumatic. So it's almost like a catch-22.
Yes.
You have been traumatized, but part of the problem with what created it was long-term trauma related to stress.
Yes.
So you gotta kind of a double-edged sword. You've got to work out. You've got to let the trauma from the actual situation calm. And then you got to start changing the way. It's not as much the way you live your life. It's more the perception of your life.
Well,
of how you
my girlfriend,
perceive your life.
my girlfriend said, you've got to expand the no, Martha.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you and I have talked about and I've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah.
God knew what he was doing here. He knew this was coming. He didn't cause this. I don't
No,
believe God
no.
causes this, but he knew this was coming and he's been preparing me.
It's almost a soft place for you to land.
Yes. And when
Right?
Dr. Gersh heard that I was in the ICU 3 hours after we'd done this interview,
Did she come see you?
She came
Good.
and saw me, but she also texted me and said, God's got a plan for you, that you need to talk to women about their heart health.
Yeah.
Because this particular syndrome, it's not that it happens to all women in their 60s, but the people that get it are in their 60s,
Right.
are female. Every cardiologist I've talked to have said they have not seen a man with this
Wow.
particular condition. And my heart is a little different shaped.
Yeah,
But
well-
everybody's is, okay?
Yeah.
The thing about the practice of medicine is that everybody's body's not the same.
Right. We've been talking about that over and over again.
So I've discovered I've got this artery that's supposed to go down and under my heart, but it actually goes over the top. And the interesting thing about that is it actually is more of a protection to a massive
Heart attack. Wow.
because of the design of the way my heart is. So I had this one problem over here, but if I were to have actually the clogged arteries and all that stuff, that I'm a little more protected
Right.
with that than some people are. So I'm learning a lot about this because, it changes your life and it changes the way people treat you. It changes the way you do things. My daughter said she wanted to wrap me in bubble wrap.
It's kind of like you're not who you thought you were anymore. You have to re-find yourself.
Yes.
And, it's funny because I didn't have that type of event, but I had a similar event relative to my heart health that hit me, and it was a gut punch. Now, luckily, I didn't end up in the ICU, but it was such a huge gut punch that said, you've been a personal trainer your whole life, you're eating, you're drinking, you're doing everything you think is right.
Yep.
Because of your genetics. And guess what? You're still at high risk for stroke and heart attack because you have soft plaque built up.
Well, and speaking of genetics,
so I'm like, wait.
I got a genetic testing done when my brother died of aorta dissection 12 years ago,
Right.
but they want me to go and get a new round of tests, the genetic
idea.
test,
Yeah.
because I want to protect my daughter and the other women in my life
Yeah.
that if we can't, that are genetically connected to me,
Right.
so that if they can be looking for this, that they don't have to go through this.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's such it's the emotional part, Martha, that's going to be the biggest challenge, especially for super women. Right?
Yes.
So women who are kind of already sometimes put up on a pedestal, whether it's at home with your family or in a community, because you do provide so much already. It's a heartache in and of itself to be able, you have to get past the thing that says, have I let you all down? Because I am absolutely fallible.
Yes.
And that's the bad part about being on a pedestal that I have. I learned the hard way that being on a pedestal, you got to fall
Right.
a further way to go. So you can't walk around making anybody or even feeling yourself like you're invincible, because we are all human beings with our own unique configurations that can either, we can do everything right and still not know when we're going to leave this earth. That is not ours to worry about, right? We just have to live the best life we can. And so when you're doers, like we are, and not beers, which are very different human beings, right? Doers tend to feel resourceful and feel valuable in the world by doing a lot of things. And I know I'm talking to a lot of people out there probably. I'm talking to you most because I love you. And I hope I don't get emotional because I was really worried about her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Me too.
She came home from a doctor's appointment and I'm sitting with a gift on her front porch just waving when she got there.
I think what's so challenging is, well, there's a lot of things that are challenging, but it is this kind of, I'm a faithful person. And I very easily say before this happened, oh yeah, I'm ready whenever it happens, whenever it's time to go, I'm ready because, I've been saved and, all the things you do.
I know where I'm going.
But when I was in that moment, I was saying, Lord, I know I'm secure in my salvation, but I'm not ready to go yet. And that's really not my decision. It's his decision. My cousin used to have the funniest thing, the way she described these kinds of incidents. And she goes, Martha, God's got like an index card box. And sometimes he pulls one out and goes, oops, it's not time for her, puts it back in. And that's how she explained death to me when I was 13 and my grandmother died.
That's funny.
And I still remember that to this day. And I called her up because I'm 66, she's 78. And I called her up and said, do you remember this? We were riding in the car at Oma's funeral, my grandmother's funeral, and you were trying to explain death to me. And that's how, God pulls out a card and he goes, oops, it's not time yet, and puts it back in.
That was a core memory.
Yeah, it was a core memory.
You were looking at that index card going, put it back, back in the box. Back in the box.
That's right. I got stuff to do. Too many people depend on me.
But yeah, I mean, you really don't. That's something we've been talking about in this show.
Yes.
We have been reiterating over and over again, take care of you. The airline, put the mask on your people. Go to the spa lifestyle. We just dropped that again last week, talking about the importance of de-stressing and living a life that will allow you to live as long as possible, as far as what you can provide, what you can do, and to take care of you. And the doers, right? We're the ones who put ourselves last almost every time. There's always something else to do, and there's always someone else to care for. And at the end of the day, Martha, some of those things you really have to assess. If I were to have died in that moment, or if I were to leave this world tomorrow, would half of those people really care that I have been putting so much of my life energy into?
Well, and it's funny too, because, of course, Lynn has my husband, he knows too much, and so it was harder on him.
Oh yeah.
I think because of that. But I made it real clear to him. I said, okay, we're not going, we have a trip we canceled because I just didn't want to take the chance of ending up in an emergency room.
It was out of the country.
Out of the country.
Right.
I didn't want to take that chance. Right. I wanted to be sure I was through all the screening and that I got released from my doctors. And so I said, okay, now that we've got this extra time here, I want you to take care of yourself. You've got, a shoulder appointment you've put off. You've got a basal cell carcinoma appointment you've put off. I want you to do all those things because I can't do those things for you.
Right.
But it will make me feel better if you're taking care of yourself. And so he said he would. We'll see if he will. He's a man. What can I say? But I do think that we just really, as women, even Karen Gersh on that day, Dr. Gersh said, most of the studies have been done on white men. They don't do as many studies on women. And they still, they're better now, but still haven't caught up to the studies they need to be doing on women. Although there is a whole lot of stuff on Takotsubo syndrome. And I am thankful that I am not as far down the road as some of these people when they got discovered.
Right.
Because I have very little damage to my heart. And it is expected within 2 to 4 months that the part of my heart muscle that was damaged will recover from this and regenerate. It's not so damaged.
Right.
And because I got to the hospital in 7 minutes.
That's the beauty of our bodies.
And they were able to stop the spasm with a hit of fentanyl. I know fentanyl has a bad name, but when you use it appropriately. It
has its place.
When they were able to stop the pain and the spasm pretty quickly.
That's good.
So there was a very minimal amount of damage to my heart muscle. And it probably will recover, in 2 to 4 months.
It will recover.
Yes.
because our bodies are designed that way.
Yes.
We have the most incredible divine design as far as our bodies are concerned. And so when that's kind of the area that I operate in regularly. Now, I'm not in an acute situation. So the reason that the way I have chosen to handle my heart condition or my vascular condition, I'll say, not necessarily heart condition, but is by looking to remove the blocks from my body, emotionally and physically, that keep it from healing itself the way it should naturally, based on the design, right? The divine design. And it's interesting, we're talking about women's heart health today and our experiences, because I was just cleaning the kitchen this morning and getting ready. My Alexa automatically pops on the news, because there's very few times that I keep up with the news, because I have chosen to step away from some of the information output out there, because it does tend to cause emotional reactions. So I listen to you when I can, and I have this 24/7 news program that pops up on my Alexa in the mornings. And the first thing it talked about today was how more women die of heart attacks than men, and how it's really a very, very much more a women's issue. And I think a lot of that is because, when you talk about when you had your heart attack, the feeling that you had, the tears, the emotion that you had when your heart muscle was traumatized. We see that in the spa regularly with many muscles in the body, right? Heartbreak? What do they call it? The Takimoto's or
Takotsubo syndrome, broken heart syndrome.
Broken heart syndrome. So the heart is a muscle. And so lots of people will be on the table getting a massage and will have no understanding as to why they're suddenly crying. But the act of moving those tissues and moving those muscles will oftentimes release trapped emotions that are stuck in those musculature. Now, that sounds a little airy-fairy, and it sounds kind of woo-woo, like, what are you talking about, crying on the table? But it is a real physiological thing, and it's a quantum physics thing that we've discussed as far as like vibration, emotion is a frequency. And when you are a doer, like we are, when you're constantly going from one task driven, right? Going from one task to another, checking off those boxes. When you do have trauma, you tend to put it into the heart emotionally, like the loss of somebody you love. Could even be an animal, like an animal that you really loved. Like if you're not one to express a lot of emotion, like I'm not one to just cry very easily. God forbid.
I cry all the time.
I was not one ever. My children probably hardly ever saw me really cry. But I'm learning now that if I feeling those emotions and crying and being able to, I tease my husband sometimes, you could cry at a cat food commercial because, they're just so tender and sweet. And sometimes feeling emotions, letting emotions out, often women don't have the time to do that because they're too busy. I don't have time to grieve. I don't have time to mourn. I don't have time to deal with this trauma. I have to deal with my children or whatever, my jobs.
Yeah.
Because usually women have many jobs, but the body itself absorbs all those emotions. So I think part of really getting to the heart health around the physical is really learning good mental health techniques, which we've talked about, finding ways to not be such a doer, and maybe, you hit that no, maybe give you a flashcard that goes, nope.
Nope. Well, Marianne Williamson wrote a couple of books. Of course, the most famous one was A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
But she wrote a book for Oprah called A Course in Weight Loss, which talks a lot about these kinds of things, these things you keep in your
body,
and how you get rid of them and that sort of thing. And It was a very interesting book because, I'm not a new agey kind of person at all, but it's very new age.
But she's I will say, Marianne Williamson, take aside that anything political or whatever, she's very wise.
Yes.
She's a wise woman.
Yeah, she really surprised me, just to do a little side note, that she didn't do better when she ran for office, because she's was so widely accepted in that book. It's one of the best-selling books, A Course in Miracles, that's ever been out there.
Yeah.
And I thought that she would get more traction, but it just goes to show you, that
you just never know.
You can't predict those things. You can't predict those things. But what I'm going to do over the next few weeks, and I tell you, it's so funny. I met with my therapist because, I need to deal with all these emotions. And, she says, you're going to be thinking about who contacted you and who didn't contact you. Don't worry about that kind of stuff, because a lot of people just don't know what to say.
Yes,
it's not that they're not thinking about you.
Very true.
And it might be someone that's really close to you that you didn't hear from, but you don't hold it against them.
Right.
Because
those are
they
not
don't know
the
what
moments
to say.
to judge the situation.
They don't know what to say. They're concerned about it, that kind of thing. But I do think that it is a whole mind body kind of thing. And I'm going to get through. I've got another, week and a half of this monitor I'm wearing right now. And then I've got a few more tests. Now, the good news is they're spacing these tests out enough that I know they're not that worried about me. Okay, because
that's a good sign.
Do you know what I mean? If they were really worried about me, these would be like back to back to back to back, checking them. So they're just going to kind of see where I am. And then Lynn and I are planning. We've got a big trip planned in July. We're going to go on that trip.
Good.
We've got another one in October. We love traveling, and we're going to do that, because this, more than anything, makes me realize, we got to live now, and you got to figure out how to live now.
Present.
I just wrote an article about or did a little mini podcast on my radio side about how I choose news. And it's so funny because I'm not supposed to watch the news right now. I'm not supposed to
why?
Because it's stressful. Yeah. It's very stressful. And so I've kind of made a pact with my doctor, okay, how about if I just kind of scroll the headlines and maybe watch one of the morning shows, because they do it a little softer. I mean, they still do the same headlines, but they
fun
do
stuff too.
Yeah. So because
make you want to buy something, you may want to
know?
buy something because they throw in deals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I just have to be careful about that stuff.
Yes,
and,
you do.
I loved the Olympics, I will tell you, because it was in Italy. It came on at 4 a.m, and I'm changing my schedule. The number one thing I'm doing is I'm changing my schedule. You know me, I get up in the middle of the night and prep the show. Not doing that anymore. I'm prepping it the day before. I have enough institutional knowledge here that I don't need to know everything that's going on, because there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's happening, it's happened before, and I can bring some perspective.
Yeah. And this is, we're just, with this show, I don't know if you guys know this, but we just sit down and say, what are we going to talk about today?
Yes.
Because this really is a podcast of two friends from different backgrounds discussing things that matter to them, right? Which is a good outlet for mental health as well.
Well, and showing people how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, people have got to talk to each other and not have the first thing out of their mouth, politics and religion. The old days when we were raised, don't talk about politics and religion,
right?
And people go, well, what else is there? Well, it's gotten to the point where, there's a lot of people drawing lines in the sand, and they shouldn't be, because we've got a lot more that unites us than divides us. And I made this point. I made this point at My Sister's Place event that I did the week before my heart attack, where, and it was about this news choosing thing. I've been thinking about this for a long time. And you have another event
coming up. I'm going to go.
I do. But this news choosing thing, because there have been bad things happening in the world since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Okay. You cannot
just read the Bible.
Yes. You cannot be worried about what's happening 5,000 miles from here. But you can help out at a place like My Sister's Place or any number of other places where they actually help people in your own neighborhood.
Yeah. Project Yet is looking for mentors.
Absolutely.
These are for young people who have been disenfranchised. They need mentors. They need people that can scoop them up and kind of help give them little jobs or just show them how to live.
Take care of your own backyard first. Right. It's a lot less stressful.
Yes.
And if we all did that, whether you're
What
watching
a better
us
world.
here in our community or halfway around the world,
Mm-hmm.
if we all did that, the world would be a better place.
So much of a better place. And, you know, we have said that over and over again. And I just keep feeling how interesting it is that you and I have this opportunity. And almost at the same time, we've, you know, one after the other, we've gone through some situational experiences that have kind of changed our world a little bit and our views on things. And I have a feeling we'll be going through more over time.
But the key is you have to be
know.
willing to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be willing to see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Too many people just say, you know, they don't look for the nudges. You know, I believe God speaks to you all the time.
Yeah.
And people are looking for the big things, you know, like a heart attack's a big thing.
Yeah,
it is.
it's
But
huge.
the big things, but it's little things.
Yeah.
It's little things that happen.
Well,
and you have to be open to it.
yeah. And listening to the nudges, that's also a part of staying healthy, because our bodies are divine, right? And they will talk to you. The body will tell you when it's not functioning right. It will tell you if you need some extra rest. Your body tells you almost anything you need to know, but you have to listen. And that's when you get the flu and you're down. Your body's telling you a week before, you need to slow down. I need you to rest a little bit. And it's those little nudges, when you don't listen to them, all of a sudden you're getting a big pop, you know, a big smack.
Well, and I think too, what made me kind of weak for this going into it was that I
You
had
were
been
sick.
sick for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I had been taking way too many of those multi-symptom cough medicines. Look, I am not a doctor, but I'm telling you, those were bad for me.
Yeah.
And they aren't meant for you to take them for weeks on end.
That's,
and we
you know,
were
I'm
sick.
researching and I'm
Yes.
sending you, she's in the
Yes.
hospital. I'm sending texts. I'm
Yes.
like, okay, this is what I'm thinking.
Yes.
You know, I've got an
yes.
exercise science
So
background. I'm not
I
a
got
doctor.
nothing. I'm not taking.
Decongestants virus.
Yeah, no
you know.
D's, nothing with a D behind it I'm taking anymore. Any
Good.
kind with a D. And so I'm going to take I've got to take some ownership, you know, in how I'm going to manage this, and it'll be fine. It's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
But it was still terrifying, and it's okay to mention that too.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that a lot of people are afraid, because what do we do as women? You fall down and you go, "Oh, I'm fine.
Don't mess with me,
Sorry,
I'm
don't
good."
mess. I'm
Yeah.
good. We
Yeah.
won't miss
I don't
a beat.
need help. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need help.
Don't give me any help. God
That's right.
forbid. Yeah. So, you know, that's one of the worst things that women do with each other too, is try to be the one that doesn't really need the help. I'm going to be the help giver.
Yes.
Like, I want you to lean on me. But when something goes on with you, you've got to really do look to see who you can lean on.
Yes.
Right? And that's kind of what they were saying to you. Now, don't judge who called you. People respond to trauma in much different ways, right? People either withdraw or they come close, but you'll soon be able to perceive those that you really can rely on, the ones that you can rest your head on and be open and honest with, right? Because, I mean, people do judge whether they like it or not. They're going to have their thoughts and their concerns. But this kind of thing, this is a deeply personal experience. This is a deeply intimate experience when your own physical body, you know, it's almost like a betrayal at first that your body has betrayed you in some way, shape, or form. So you have to get through that.
Yes.
And then once you get through that part, then you start looking at, how do I be myself instead of doing what Martha Zoller does, or instead of doing what Teryl is known
Well,
to do.
and we've talked about before this kind of health journey I've been on, and I am convinced that had I been in the condition I was in 5 years ago when this happened,
might not have made it
I would have
through
had a very different outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe I would have made it, but I would have had a lot more,
Reverb.
reverb
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
But I know I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track. I'm doing the things I need to be doing. And I want to say too that so many people have reached out to me that either I hear from regularly, or I don't hear from often, or they just heard about it, or they were concerned about it. I had 2 ladies come the first 2 days I was back on the air downtown that brought me flowers at the studio, and just listeners of the program.
You could really see the love.
Yes, they were just like, they were in tears because they were so happy I was back. And so I am appreciative to every single one of you that reached out and took the time, and the people that thought and prayed for me. It was felt. It was felt.
Let me tell you, I was keeping it contained, right? Because you never know how somebody feels about their personal information being spoken about without them being there, or being given permission to do so, especially something as sensitive as having a heart attack. So you had reached out to me and let me know, and so I was keeping that very contained. So I had to do a show without my person. So because we had a very special guest that came on that I didn't want to move her back again. So we sat down. She came in, and the first thing she said to me is, "How's Martha? We were at the Greek restaurant and we heard she had a heart attack." This was only like a day or so afterwards.
Well, Sherry Vaxavanis is my primary care doctor.
Right.
And then John Vaxavanis is one of the owners over there. So,
well, they were at the other one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, this is what we're dealing with."
Yes.
But come on in and sit down. But I felt good after that, because I realized, first of all, how many people know and love you, number one. And that one more person that knew is one more prayer.
And that's sort of the way I look. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. And they asked me on Georgia Gang, which I do for Fox 5 Atlanta, if it was okay to say something. And I said, yes, honestly, the more prayers, the better. That's the way I feel about it.
I was so proud of that, because, I think prayer pulled my daughter through her leukemia and her stroke. I had a prayer pager that a specific group of a church group gave me. And
so every time somebody prayed, you got a little buzz.
Yes.
That's so great.
And that thing was going off so much, I had to actually turn the pager off, because it was just
pagers. You can look it up, kids, if you don't know what they are.
2011.
Yes.
But it was the thing. I was like, okay, we've got some momentum. We've got some prayers going. Prayers do work. And it goes back to what we spoke about earlier, about quantum physics. Okay. Yes, God exists. Yes, that it's important, but prayers, words, thoughts carry vibrational frequencies, and they can go directly to somebody to lift them when needed. And our bodies respond, because our brains, they don't necessarily see prayer. You don't see microwaves either, but you believe in them, right? You don't see radio waves, but we listen to the radio. So prayer is something similar to that on a quantum physics level, where brain waves and thought patterns go out and they make changes. So prayer is huge in my book. You may not see me at church, because I may not be in church. My church sometimes is right here around me.
Yes.
But I am a believer, and I've always been. So the fact that you're still sitting here today, and that we're going to use this opportunity and the things that I've been through to help you guys as an audience, to make sure anyone listening to us, anybody in our field, now that's us doing, but it's also us being, because we're being ourselves. We're being genuine, and we're being open, and we're being vulnerable, and we're being authentic, sitting here with each other.
And we're so happy you joined us today. We want you to like and subscribe. Put your comments in there. But I just say, ladies, have a regular doctor, number one. Don't just go to your gynecologist. That's great, but don't just go to your gynecologist. Right. Have a primary care doctor. And when you get to be a certain age, you might need to get a little bit of heart screening. And but let your doctor
lungs.
guide you on that. Let your doctor guide you on that. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to tell this story. And I'm just glad to be back.
I'm glad to have you back. And I'm sure anybody listening is very glad to have you back as well, because there's nothing like Martha Zoller's voice. I mean, she's got such a good voice and a wonderful smile. And so we're here today in our new little area. You're going to see us probably in different studio locations on occasion. We have made this setup to where we can take it on the road should we wish. We're also going to be hopefully bringing in Zoom guests as well. People from other parts of the country are reaching out wanting to be on the show, who are very knowledgeable, other doctors, other naturopaths who can help us help you. Because as always, Martha and I know that your wellness deserves a little oversharing.